Under the quiet night sky, only the faint sound of streetlights and the occasional sound of passing cars added to the silence. Ben Thompson, a successful and socially prominent black man, was driving home with his best friend Sam. They had just attended a management and leadership seminar where Ben was the keynote speaker. Sam sat in the passenger seat, looking satisfied and proud as he thought about the enjoyable evening they had just spent. A comfortable silence filled the air between them, as each of them reminisced about the memorable moments of the evening. Suddenly, the peaceful atmosphere was broken by the flashing red and blue lights of a police car behind them. Ben jumped slightly, glanced in the rearview mirror and noticed a patrol car approaching with a stop sign. Sam noticed it too, and turned to Ben, a puzzled look on his face. "Why are they stopping us?" Sam asked, unable to hide his surprise. They hadn't committed any traffic violations. They were going the right speed, signaling when turning, and obeying all the rules. Ben frowned, feeling a sense of unease wash over him. "I don't know. Maybe it's a random check," he said, his voice calm but tinged with worry. Ben slowed down and pulled over to the side of the road, but he was already starting to have a bad feeling. Even though he was a respected senior police officer, Ben knew very well that in this society, skin color could still be a reason for people to question and suspect, despite his dedication to overcoming prejudice. Two young police officers, Peterson and Brown, stepped out of the patrol car with stern looks on their faces. Officer Peterson approached Ben's window, his face stiff, his walk and tone unfriendly. He didn't even offer a greeting or explain why they were stopping Ben. "Driver's license and registration," Peterson said, his tone sharp and commanding, not at all respectful. Ben took a deep breath, trying to stay calm and comply with the young officer's request. He pulled his driver's license and registration from his wallet and gently handed them to Officer Peterson. "Is there something wrong, officer?" Ben asked, his voice calm, but still trying to keep the tension from escalating. He knew that a word or gesture that was not calm could make the situation worse, especially in the current situation. Peterson glanced at Ben's papers, barely paying attention to them, then turned his cold gaze to Sam, who was sitting quietly in the passenger seat. "Show me your papers too," Peterson said sharply, commandingly. His gaze was judgmental, almost making it clear that there was something fishy about the two men in the car. Sam hesitated, frowning slightly at the injustice of the officer's treatment. He glanced at Ben, his eyes filled with disapproval, but complied. He knew that reacting now would only make matters worse, and for their sake, Sam silently showed his ID, feeling heavy-hearted. They both knew that, no matter how high their status and reputation, it wouldn't be enough to escape suspicion just because of the color of their skin. Peterson took Sam's ID without any sign of respect, then turned to his colleague, Officer Brown. They exchanged glances for a moment, and Ben sensed that they were up to something. The fact that the two young cops didn't recognize Ben, didn't understand that the man they'd just stopped in the street was a respected police officer, added to the mystery. Not long after, Peterson took a step back, lowering his voice but still clearly ordering Ben and Sam, "Get out of the car." His voice held no mercy or explanation, making Ben feel like he was being pushed into a tense situation that he had no control over. Sam raised an eyebrow at Ben, his eyes filled with confusion and worry, but Ben knew that arguing would only make the situation worse. Ben kept his voice calm, looking Peterson straight in the eye. "Officer, can you tell us why you were asked to get out of the car?" Ben asked, trying to keep his voice as calm as possible. He knew that calmness could help defuse tension, but his directness was enough to show that he wasn't easily intimidated. Peterson responded with a cold look. "You're acting suspicious," he said, his tone sharp with no intention of explaining further. Then, Peterson moved closer and pulled out the handcuffs, walking decisively towards Ben and Sam, clearly demonstrating his power. Feeling cornered, Ben and Sam slowly stepped out of the car, each movement careful. Ben's mind was racing with thoughts. He couldn't believe that after all he had done for his life, he was standing here, facing injustice because of deep-seated prejudices in society. Peterson said nothing more, quickly handcuffing Ben, while Brown did the same to Sam. The sound of handcuffs rang out, each lock tightening on their wrists, like a knife stabbing into their pride. Sam turned to look at Ben, his eyes filled with anger and despair, but there was no other choice but to accept the situation. The sharp sound of handcuffs rang out, the sound of the locks tightening on Ben and Sam's wrists. Each sound was like a sharp knife carving deep into their self-esteem. The flashing police lights clearly showed Sam's face filled with surprise and anger. He lowered his voice, trying to suppress the surging emotions, and whispered to Ben, "What is this? We didn't do anything wrong." Ben glanced at Sam, his face trying to stay calm, but his voice was also filled with worry. "Be quiet. We have no other choice. Let me handle it." Officer Peterson stepped closer, his sharp gaze sweeping over them, showing no sign of hesitation. "What now? Are you two going to keep quiet like this?" He sneered, touching his gun as if to remind them who was really in charge here. "What are you doing?" Ben asked, his voice calm but commanding. He looked Peterson straight in the eye, unflinching. "Why did you stop us?" Peterson raised his eyebrows, his expression challenging. "You two are acting suspiciously. That's reason enough." Ben kept his eyes steady, but anger was rising inside him. Suspicious? Just because we were in the car at night? Peterson moved closer, his voice growing more sarcastic. "Yeah, that's our business. You got a problem with that?" Sam couldn't hold it in any longer, his voice bursting out from his clenched lips. "Do you guys really think you can act like this without anyone saying anything?" Peterson sneered. "Speak up? Come on. Who do you think will believe your words over ours? It seems you still haven't realized who has the power here." Ben held his hands tightly, avoiding any reaction that might make the situation worse. He took a deep breath, looking straight at Peterson. "If you checked our IDs more carefully, maybe you would reconsider what you just did." Peterson paused for a moment, raising an eyebrow at Ben, while Brown stepped closer with a slightly hesitant look on his face. "Peterson, maybe we should check their information again." But Peterson waved his hand, still showing no intention of backing down. "What reinspection? We already have enough reason to stop them." Brown looked into Ben's eyes, as if realizing something was wrong, then suddenly turned back to the patrol car, checking the information on the system. A few seconds later, the screen lit up with Ben's information, along with the words, "Captain Benjamin Thompson, District Police Chief." Brown's face changed color immediately. He turned to Peterson, his voice choked. "Peterson, do you know who this is?" Peterson hesitated, but tried to keep his tone casual. "Who? Just suspicious people." Brown stepped closer, whispering in Peterson's ear with a bewildered expression. "This is Captain Thompson. We just handcuffed one of our superiors." Peterson's face was ashen, his eyes filled with horror as he realized the terrible mistake he had made. He staggered back, looking at Ben as if he had just had a nightmare. I don't know. Captain, Ben looked at Peterson, his eyes sharp but calm. He slowly uncuffed himself, his hands red from the grip, to the confusion of the two young officers. Peterson stammered, "Captain Thompson, I don't know. Please understand." Fear was evident in his eyes, and both officers stood still, confused and ashamed. Ben sighed, maintaining his characteristic composure. "The problem isn't just that you don't know who I am. The problem is that you never ask questions, just judge at first sight," he said, his voice low and firm. "If someone like me is treated like this, how many others have to suffer the same injustice?" Peterson and Brown looked down, shame covering them. Ben looked straight at them, his voice becoming more determined. "You need to think about your actions, about how you look at and treat others. This is not a small mistake, but a deviation in your thinking and responsibility." As Ben and Sam walked back to the car, the air around them was silent. save for the lifeless flash of police lights. Ben gripped the wheel, relieved to be out of the situation, but unable to stop thinking about his responsibility to help change the system he had been so deeply involved in. He turned to Sam, his voice filled with determination. "We have work to do. No one deserves this anymore." The incident quickly spread throughout the department, becoming a valuable lesson in bias and fairness. People in the department began to reflect on their own behavior and began extensive discussions about fairness and accountability. Ben realized that for real change to occur, people had to be clear about the biases they consciously or unconsciously carried. If this story has made you think and feel deeply about justice and change, please support us by subscribing to Inspiring Hearts. We will continue to bring meaningful stories that inspire and awaken compassion. Don't forget to share the video and leave a comment. Let us know where you are watching from. We appreciate your support.